I'm going to just speak a little bit about who I am and why I do this, and essentially the things that I stand for. I was having a lot of fun, and I was thinking about all the things that I wanted to share today, and I want to share this for a few reasons. One, to let you a little bit more to know about my personal intention, and also because I'm inviting you to listen to maybe what I stand for and really see if it's aligned with your own self in your own way, and maybe even a part of you that's waking up again. So giving yourself permission to hear through, yes, your ears, and also through that sensing and emotional body. And so one of the things that I stand for is I stand for joy, because I really, really believe that we're here to enjoy and live life and not just get by, not endure, and not just manage. And I often think about how when I ask people, how are you? And often the answer that I hear is hanging in there. I got things, and it's just been this very common thing of a lot of suffering. And it makes sense considering the generations that raised us and the people that we were role modeled by and from. The world we live in is a very different world, and where we're going is very different. And I do believe, and it took me a long time to really get this. I remember years ago, I was sitting on the beach in Playa del Carmen, and I really wanted to access my joy, and I wanted to tap into this essence of nourishment. And I sat on the beach and I put my arms out and I was like, okay, nourishment, joy. And I just opened myself to it. And I felt it just cut off in my arms. And I realized that I was so far away from what that was. Maybe I knew what it was when I was early in my 20s, and it would be going out partying, or it would be like achieving a goal. And I hadn't really given myself permission to tap in my joy. And I allowed myself to go on a journey to rediscover my joy again. And what I realized, it wasn't just about discovering things that I enjoy to do. It was actually allowing myself to get more and more familiar and remember what the essence and the sense of joy was in my body. And so the embodiment of joy, I believe, yeah, sure, we are spiritual beings having human experience. That said, we live in this human experience. We can and we get to enjoy it fully. And if we've been living in fight or flight or survival or, not enough or too much or anything like that, we can get really familiar and used to and further away from the essence of joy. So I really, really take a stand for joy, because I would love to be in a world where we all just really allowed ourselves to experience that essence, fully, not because of any certain thing, somebody doing what you want them to do finally or whatever, but just that pure sense of joy. And I also stand for individual uniqueness, because we're all so extraordinarily unique, and we all have different learning styles and different ways of processing and different ways of needing love, expressing love, different ways of feeling seen and supported. And I believe in understanding, knowing thyself is the greatest power, for sure. And then when we understand ourselves and know ourselves, we can inform other people around us and be able to, instead of being a guessing game or trying to give people what we think they need or what we need and hoping they'd give it back to us or whatever it is, that we really know our own selves, and this is what works for me, this is what works best for me, and let me honor you and let me understand you. And when there's this mutual understanding and respect of our individuality, then we can take in life in a more soft, aligned way. And that excites me, because so much of the way in which that we've created this collective and the inner circle is to meet people where they are. If you're somebody that processes, you take in information and you process more slowly, it's more of an earth energy, you're going to chunk things down. Maybe you're going to dip in, take some information, gather, and then sit back, not take any more in and digest it. As opposed to if you're somebody that's a little bit more air, you're going to keep devouring the information and maybe repeating it over and taking it in and taking it in and taking it in until it lands and integrates. And so when we know how we learn and how we grow and what we need and what support feels like us and for us individually, and then we can be able to get that met, life just becomes easier. And we're able to align ourselves with those kind of things and people so much more easy. I also take a stand for adventure and growth, because life is an absolute journey of exploration and becoming. And I believe that we're meant to keep learning and expanding and evolving. The main thing is to do it without abandoning ourselves along the way. I've been on this path of consciousness for over 30 years. And the way in which that I was going about it was that I was living with I live to be of service. I live for my purpose. I would do it at the expense of myself. And I'm not saying this is a blanket statement of all women, for sure. It is, that's my gender in this lifetime. That is something that I see. It's that we have this deep motherly, nurturing energy inside of us, and sometimes we will do it and offer it at the expense of ourselves. And I do believe that that's changing, and I do believe that there are tools out there that are supporting us. That said, it's not a one and done. It is a retraining of our nervous system. It's a retraining of our sensing body, our emotional body, and our physical body to be women that live in that greater sense of sovereignty and self-honor, to be able to tend to our own selves so that way we can be on this path of journey and growth and of evolution in a way that feeds us, that fuels us, that excites us. And then when we allow ourselves to change, right, become the next iteration from the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old, and become the next iteration of who we choose to be, we're doing it deliberately. The joy is a journey instead of a sufferfest. We're allowing ourselves to make it up as we go along. We're allowing ourselves to either even twist and turn and then eventually be the role models that we want to be of service because we choose to live it in the adventure called life. And that excites me. That excites me so much to look at this path of learning and growing to be one that is fun and super exciting. And I also stand for healthy, conscious connection. Everything is relationship. We're in constant relationship with our bodies, with our money, with our job, with the people in our lives, with the food we eat. And what I believe that when connection is conscious, we relate with awareness, with choice and care. We allow for deeper intimacy. And we're in a way that we can meet the other person or the activity that we're in, again, without losing ourselves, and also with this sense of self-honor. And so when we cultivate healthy, clear relationships, and for many of us, that's sometimes an unlearning as we're relearning. It's, especially the people that we've had in our lives for longer periods of time. Maybe we've been married for many years, maybe they're our relative, and we have developed certain patterns within that relationship that we know aren't necessarily good for us. That said, they're so hardwired in us that in a way, what sometimes can happen is that we can start to create certain patterns that don't serve us within that relating, and it's no longer healthy. It becomes either something we're tolerating or it's toxic. And so learning to and have those deeper, stronger relationships while we're also in constant healthy relationship with ourselves, I think is really, really beautiful and important. And that's why I devote so much of my own personal process to that essence of growth and learning each day. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I also stand for safety. I believe in creating spaces where regulation and safety are foundational, where it's safe to really be who you actually are and not who you think you should be. And I feel like that speaks for itself for sure. And one thing that I do know, at least in my own experience, again, I don't believe that we're ever given anything more than we can handle. And I love where I came from in my life. That said, I wouldn't say that safety was something that I really got familiar with. And so learning to see what safety is and feel what it is in my body now, and building my life and who I choose to be for the remainder of this life, for however much long, to be building it now from a sense of pure safety, like a regulated immune system, to know that no matter what, I'm okay. That is a very different creation that I'm creating right now compared to just getting by and gripping and just doing everything I can to feel that sense of safety. And so much of this work is lived for me. And it comes from experience, not theory. And so I'm just curious, just want you to kind of land into your own system and your own body and what I said, and just notice what resonates for you. And when I open it up in a little bit, I'd love to just get your thoughts on that. So if you can kind of just take that in for yourself and see, if anything kind of spiked an interest to you.